Are we good, Rabbi slash? Is it good?
Great.
I guess we're not ready.
No comparison. Mom, no comparison. Where was it?
They're freaking that out. The camera, the video.
Go. Okay, you want to? I'll do this. Okay, here, I'll make this like. You can't do that. I'll make this a little bit lower. Yeah, I got it. Got it. Here, I just made this lower. I'll go get that.
Real quick, what do you want?
You start. We're just gonna get the little mic clip.
You want to wire him up?
Yeah, we're gonna wire him up. So he's getting that.
Should I say whatever I want to say?
Sing a song. No. There we go.
We're just waiting for more techno.
We're all connected.
Yeah. Right, when you started, we didn't have all these wires, right?
This makes it professional. So going right there. Can I put that?
Where should I put it on my tie? Really? Okay.
Would you like it on your tie?
I think it'll be easier for me if I have it on my tie. Yeah.
Do you want to put it on yourself?
That's what the professionals put on the tie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you're a professional.
All right. Well, you are.
Now we're going to turn this on. And it's on.
This is the sponsor. On the website. I don't have my phone.
Yeah. Hello. Nice to see you.
All right, welcome everyone. Just say, somebody just reminded me of a story. I don't know if this is true, but it applies to Rabbi Siegel, I believe. And it's, we'll figure that out. And the story is a lesson for everyone. It's one of these stories might not be true, but the lesson is true, and it apparently applies tonight. And that is a person who had a dream, a recurring dream. Of course, the stories always go, you ignore these dreams, and they happen a million times, and then finally you take action. And the dream was that if he travels to some far-off place, and he digs under a certain bridge, he's going to find a treasure. Ever hear this story? Mm-hmm. Say no, please. Don't embarrass me. If you know the story, it's fine. But of course, he finally goes to that place, and he wants to dig under the bridge, and it's some protected area. The soldiers of the king, he can't get near, but he's trying to hang around and get access, because it's really exactly what he pictured in the dream. He was never there before. It must be some message from Hashem. That's the place to dig. And hanging around, a soldier finally notices him and says, "What are you doing?" So he admits, he says, "The truth is, I had this dream. If I dig here, I'm going to find a treasure." And the soldier says, "Oh, don't be silly. I had a dream like that. If I would travel to some far-off place," and he starts describing this Jew's hometown, shtetl, back in Europe, his house, his living room. Of course, it's probably a one-room house, so it wasn't just the living room, it was his house. He says, "If I always dreamt if I would dig in that Jew's, in his living room, I'd find a treasure." And the Jew realized that was the message. He went back home, dug under his own, and he found a treasure. So that could be the lesson with Rabbi Siegel. He started out in Manhattan, the shul of New York, and as his story is traveled around, and then found right in his own neighborhood, Upper East Side, a treasure in his local Chabad with Rabbi Krasyansky and all the Chevra on the East Side. So we just want to introduce Rabbi Burt Siegel. First, I want to thank first of all, Rabbi Mendel Kugel, who's the brains behind the operation, set everything up, thought through everything. So Yasher Koach, Rabbi Mendel, and all of our sponsors. I just lost them. Hold on a second. Greg and Connie Bell, Jack and Ariel Berlin, Gary and Susan Glass, Eric and Sarah London, Moshe and Levanda Kirschenbaum, Maimi and Ruth Kirschenbaum, Murad and Eti Shasha, and Eli and Arina Zalmanovich are the hosts for tonight, and Yasher Koach, and Rabbi Siegel.
Thank you. Thank you. I was going to actually tell that story myself. And, and then I was going to sit down. That was it. So I seem to have some kind of connection with a lot of people here. It's so nice to be here. I feel at home already. These are actually the very happiest years of my life. They are actually the very best years of my life. And part of it is through my affiliation with Chabad. So my story is actually not the story of a Jew who wandered away and then somehow came back. I've always been a Jew, and I've always been very steeped in Jewishness. But my story is actually the story of someone who was born with an intense yearning to find spirituality in their Judaism. Not just Jewish identity or not just Jewish affiliation, but Jewish spirituality. It was a spirituality that somehow for years and decades I was not able to discover. I yearned for it and I longed for it and I explored and explored. It's just the way I am. That's how I was born. Everybody is born with a certain nature, and those of you who have more than one children know, as everybody tells me, I just have one, that each child is so different from the next, right? So how could that be? Because each child is born with his or her specific nature, because Hashem gives us all our own nature so that we can fulfill that nature and do our unique job in this world. So through Chabad, I've learned the depths of spirituality that I've been looking for all my life. So what is the spirituality that I've been looking for? The Alter Rabbi, who was the founder of Chabad, said that meditation is good, but it's mostly about experiencing and focusing on God. That's what we have to do. We can't just meditate. We have to learn how to love God. We have to learn how to know God. We have to learn how to connect with God. We have to learn how to bring Hashem into our lives as a guiding light so that Hashem can be a guiding light to us at every single moment. We have to believe that Hashem is the trusted author of every moment of life. Spirituality is to know that we have a neshama, that we have a soul. Obviously, we're not just physicality, that there is spirituality about us also. And that soul, which is our deep sense of who I am, it's our very essence, it's our true essence. It is, again, as the Alter Rebbe said, it is knowing that we are part of God in truth. So that's the spirituality that I've been looking for all my life, and Baruch Hashem, thank God, it's the spirituality I've been able to discover within Chabad. So let me tell you a little bit about my upbringing, my Jewishness, the story of someone who always had a connection, but was always looking for a spiritual connection. I have a fantasy, or maybe it's true, that in the moments before I was born, Hashem came to me and whispered in my ear, Burt, you have to spend your life trying to rediscover me in this world. And that has truly been my life's journey, to try with all my might to rediscover Hashem. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Has anybody ever been there to Milwaukee? Yeah? What took you to Milwaukee?
I had an interview there with Stark Investments.
I see, okay. My parents were immigrants from Poland, and I was brought up in a home that was filled with Yiddish culture. It was not at all religious. It was a secular Yiddish culture. We had the Jewish newspaper, Der Vorwitz, that we read almost every day, and we listened to the Yiddish Stunde on the radio, and my mother would hear a Yiddish Mame, and she would always cry every time.
What year was this about?
This goes back to the middle 40s. And she would always cry. I think there was something in her tears that made me understand something about the historical connection of myself to my past of thousands and thousands of years ago. So I don't know what entered my father's consciousness, but when I was 6 years old, he decided that he was going to go to shul for, as far as I know, the first time in his life since he was in America. So we went to a little shul on the Milwaukee equivalent of the Lower East Side. We went to this Yom Kippur shul, and because Hashem had whispered in my ear that my life's journey was to rediscover Him, I actually had an intense experience of rediscovering Hashem at this Yom Kippur service in a little shul in Milwaukee. When I was 6 years old, during that service, I decided that I was going to be a rabbi. 6 years old. And I never have wavered from that path. I wanted to start Hebrew school. I wanted to start Cheder when I was 6 years old. But I was too young. So I begged my mother when I was 7, please, please call the Cheder, I want to go. This was not like the other boys in the neighborhood. I want to go to the Cheder. I was still too young. And when I was 8, I begged her, I said, please, please, I want to go to the Cheder. Not like the other boys in the neighborhood. And she finally called them, and they said, okay, he's 8 years old, he can come to the Cheder. I ran to the Cheder with such great excitement. And I remember the first time I looked at the beautiful Hebrew letters, and they weren't just black marks on a white piece of paper. When I looked at them, they were dancing in the air. There was something so magical about them. I enjoyed my Cheder experience very much. I loved it, not like the other boys in the neighborhood. And I loved my bar mitzvah, and I stayed after my bar mitzvah. You know what I'm going to say, right? Not, etc. After the bar mitzvah, when I was a little bit older, I went to the Hebrew high school, and it was a very wonderful experience. I learned Jewish literature, I learned Jewish history, but there was really no spirituality at that point. It was not a spiritual kind of Cheder. It was a Cheder to teach children Jewish literature and Jewish history. Then I was ready to go to college. Now you can imagine that a person who decided to be a rabbi when he was 6 years old, who loved Cheder, who loved his bar mitzvah, who wasn't what I call a bar mitzvah blur. They go out of the house, they go out of the shul so fast, you can't even see them. They just look like a blur. It was an extraordinary experience for me. So you can imagine what I majored in at the University of Wisconsin. You're right. I can read everybody's mind. I majored in Jewish studies. And we learned about Jewish literature, and we learned about Jewish history, but it was a secular university, so of course I didn't expect that there would be any kind of spirituality. Now I'm ready to graduate from the University of Wisconsin, and I'm ready to go on. I didn't have to choose my profession, but I'm ready to go on to graduate school. And you can guess what kind of graduate school I went to. I went to the Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati, which is the, anybody been in Cincinnati? Which is the Rabbinical School of Reformed Judaism. So why did I go there?
The Rockford Temple.
That's right. I wasn't Orthodox, and I wasn't conservative, so I thought to myself, I must be Reformed. So I decided to go to the Reform Rabbinical School. I thought that here I would finally have the spiritual experience I was looking for, that I didn't find in the Cheder. I didn't expect it. That I didn't find in the Hebrew high school. I didn't expect it. That I didn't find at the University of Wisconsin. I didn't expect it. But now I come to a rabbinical school, and I expected that I was going to begin learning about the spirituality that I had been searching for all my life. But I have to tell you that it just wasn't there. It was really a professional kind of school. We learned how to give a sermon, and we learned how to run a Hebrew school, and we learned how to raise money. The rabbi told me that was very important. He learned on the job, though. We took a course in it, right? We learned this much Gemara during the time that we were there. I told the rabbi that they told us that in all your years as a rabbi, no one is ever going to ask you a question about the Gemara. Why spend the time? We had no Shulchan Aruch. They said to us, in all of your years as a rabbi, no one is ever going to ask you about the Shulchan Aruch. And in all the years that I was an active rabbi in a congregation, not one person ever asked me about the Gemara. Not one person ever asked me about the Shulchan Aruch. They were absolutely right. But we did study in terms of the Torah and the Tanakh was from a historical point of view, from a historical perspective. And we never really learned about the spirituality that's so deeply embedded in the Torah, which I've come to see over and over again. Now, I was very, very disappointed. I was beside myself with the disappointment. I had waited all my life to find guidance in spirituality. I'd come to a lot of understandings on my own, but I realized it was very limited. And I needed some people who were steeped already in spirituality to guide me and to help me. But there was nothing there at the Hebrew Union College. And I was so disappointed. I decided to go to the president of the college all by myself. Now, he was a very eminent man. He was a great archaeologist. He discovered King Solomon's mines. And who was I? But I decided that I was going to see him anyway. I made an appointment with his secretary, and a couple weeks later she called me up and she said, Dr. Glick, he was the president in those days, Dr. Glick, we'll see you tomorrow. So I was nervous and I was trembling, and I said to Dr. Glick, I'm so disappointed. I came here looking for some kind of spirituality. there's nothing here. And he turned to me and he said, Mr. Siegel, this is an academic institution. So that was the end of my seeking spirituality at the Hebrew Union College. So finally I graduated, and I came to my first synagogue in Riverdale. I have some friends from Riverdale who are here tonight. And there, as a Reform rabbi, I read many books, and I listened to many lectures, and I just couldn't find what I was looking for within the culture and the context of Reform Judaism, because that just became my world. I became confined to a certain world, as happens to everybody. So there was nothing that really spoke to me. Much of the philosophy of Reform Judaism at that time was based upon early 20th century German rationalism. And already it had been something that was considered to be by other philosophers outmoded. So I really never had a chance to penetrate into something beyond the rational, to go into the heights and the depths of that which was beyond the rational aspect of the human mind. Well, I left that synagogue after a while, and I went to another synagogue. I went to the village temple for a little while as the interim rabbi, and then to the Shul of New York. I was looking and seeking and reading and listening to lectures, and I couldn't find anything. So the other day I was looking at the President's report. It came to me in the mail a couple days ago, and it confirmed why I just couldn't find the spirituality that I was looking for. There's going to be a very important conference. I don't know if you can see it. Where is God in Reform Judaism? Where is God in Reform Judaism? Now, if you have to ask a question like that, where is God in Reform Judaism? It's very likely that you're not going to find the kind of spirituality that you're looking for, especially as a very spiritually sensitive person like myself, let's say. So, after searching and exploring and pondering, I came to a very sad and very radical conclusion. I thought that there was no spirituality within Judaism that could speak to my heart. That nothing existed within Judaism that would ever speak to my heart. I guess I was looking for enlightenment. Those were the words that were in my mind. So of course, for hundreds and hundreds of years, people who were looking for enlightenment went to India. India was the land of enlightenment. I actually went to India 13 times. 13 different trips to India to look for the spirituality that I just couldn't find in my own backyard. It just wasn't there. For me it wasn't there. So first, I began to explore Buddhism. Some people call me a Buju, and other people call me a Jubu. But that was just a Yiddish boy who was trying to find spirituality within my own backyard. So I explored Buddhism for a while. I remember one time I went to Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama had his residence, and I had a very brief meeting with the Dalai Lama, and it's a Tibetan custom when you bless somebody to offer them something, and this is actually what the Dalai Lama gave me. So he puts it around you like this, and of course it looks like a talus, yeah? So I should have known the Dalai Lama was trying to tell me something. He's trying to tell me something. Well, Buddhism is based essentially on meditation. And my experience of meditation was that I was drawn more and more and more inside myself. Meditation brings you inside yourself. And I didn't want to be inside myself. I wanted to be in the world. It's kind of a Jewish intuition to know that your place is not only inside yourself, but your place is also in the world. So I decided then that I was going to explore Hinduism. And so I became what some people call a Hindu. I went to many ashrams, and I saw many gurus. I was trying to find this enlightenment that I wasn't able to find within Reform Judaism, and I couldn't find what I was looking for in India. Within Buddhism, it wasn't there either. Now I'm exploring in Hinduism. I just wasn't getting it. There was just nothing was happening. So I went to the guru and I said, I'm just not getting it. Just not getting it. So he said, I have the perfect answer for you. If you would just sit in a cave in the Himalayas all day long, you will become enlightened. Now, thank God you didn't say day and night, because if I had to stay in the cave in the Himalayas at night, I would have been, I probably wouldn't be here today. I would have been eaten up by some kind of animal. But during the day was okay. So I went and I sat in this cave in the Himalayas for 2-3 weeks, and I meditated. And despite the fact that the guru assured me that I was going to be enlightened, I was not enlightened. I just felt that somehow or the other, I was a hopeless case. Even though Hashem said to me just before I was born that my job was on this earth to rediscover Him, I was trying and trying and trying every which way I could to rediscover Him, and I just couldn't. I thought maybe it's just not going to work for me. So on the 13th trip to India, I finally found, listen to this now, on the 13th trip to India,
What year?
I forgot. When you read my book, I found enlightenment. On my 13th trip to India, I found enlightenment. But it wasn't the enlightenment that I expected. I heard a voice. I didn't really hear a voice. Otherwise, you would think I was suffering from auditory hallucinations. It was like I heard a voice saying, "This is the voice of your enlightenment. What are you doing here? You're a Jewish person. This is not the place that you're going to find your enlightenment. This is India. This is not the place where you're going to find your enlightenment. You have to go to Yerushalayim, and you have to go to a yeshiva. And there you're going to find your enlightenment. Now, I had never been to Israel. I had no interest at all in going to Israel. And I barely knew what a yeshiva was. But there was that voice telling me that this was the way I was going to find enlightenment. And so I decided I had to heed this voice, and 4 years ago, I went to Israel to a very nice yeshiva. It was called Yeshivat Simchat Shlomo. It was actually started by Shlomo Karba. And toward the end, I found out about Mayonot, which is a Chabad yeshiva for Baalei Tshuva. And I began to attend Mayonot as well as this other yeshiva. So I began to really, really fall in love with the little bits of Jewish tradition, with the little bits of Jewish wisdom that I began to see, that I began to glimpse during this time that I was in Yerushalayim for the first time. So I came back home, and I was very, very distressed. Here I am, a very eminent Reform rabbi, very famous Reform rabbi, but I'm finding this beauty in Reform tradition that just didn't exist in my ultra-Reform congregation. What should I do? What should I do? So, of course, I decided to go back because I had had such an extraordinary experience. And I saw more of the beauty of Yiddishkeit. And I saw more of the magnificence of Yiddishkeit. And I came back and I was even more confused than ever before. What should I do? What should I do? But it didn't stop me. I began to see something of what I was looking for. And so I went back a third time. And then I truly began to see the depth and the magnificence and the brilliance and the luminosity of our wonderful Yiddishkeit that I had never known before in my entire life. So I had this understanding of everything that I had been yearning for all my life. So I came back in a state of extreme confusion, extreme emotional distress. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And then I heard a voice again saying to me, go to Chabad.